Hello and welcome to the Spandex and Wine podcast. I'm your host, Robin Hackney, and I'm so happy that you're here. This podcast is a place for conversations about balancing a healthy lifestyle and being happy. More specifically, happy hour. Together, we'll explore all things wellness and wine. I hope you learn a little, laugh a lot, and along the way, know you're not alone on this balanced wellness journey. Ready to jump in? Pour something in your glass that makes you happy because it's time for Spandex and Wine. Hello and welcome to the Spandex and Wine podcast. I am your host, Robin Hackney, and I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for being here and thank you for listening. So as I was editing this episode and thinking about what I wanted to say in the intro and the outro, I was literally bawling. Oh boy, I'm going to tear up now. I'll share more on this in the outro, so please listen to all of it. I have a message that I need you to hear, and certain someone's for sure. Today's guest and the conversation was so powerful to me, and again, I'll share more at the end, and I'm thankful to have been able to interview Dr. Becca Whittaker. I can't even imagine her experiences and how they changed her life forever. And while she's very fun and delightful, you might need a tissue for this one. Without further ado, here is Dr. Becca Whittaker. Well, hello and welcome to the Spandex and Wine podcast. I have Dr. Becca Whittaker with me today. Hi, Dr. Becca.
Hi, it's so good to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here. And where are you joining us from?
I am in southern Utah and we are finally getting dumped on with snow. So this, I know your listeners can't see, but this glaring reflection off my face is because it is bright white outside. Just great.
Wow. Okay. I'm in Kansas and they say we might get a little bit of snow, but nothing like you apparently.
I live on a hill. So it is definitely all-wheel drive season.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, okay, you had told me that in your life, you had some troubles finding your own balance. You've had some wellness issues that you've dealt with. If you wouldn't mind, just to start with how you started your wellness journey.
So I am a doctor of chiropractic. I have been for 20 years, and my husband is also a chiropractor, and we had a thriving clinic. I see a lot of children and pregnant women in my practice. And I was booked about 2 months ahead and running the whole show and had strong vision and loved exercising, loved pushing myself, truthfully.
Mm-hmm.
What I love about your podcast and why I said yes to your invite is you talk about the need for balance between the things that we do for our health and also the things we do for enjoyment. And I have 4 children. I was running a business and I was doing the best I could to find joy in the day.
Yes.
But I was definitely over pushing. And I ended up having a massive health crash. I couldn't speak, read, write, move.
Oh my gosh.
It started with my arms and legs. I started losing coordination in my arms, and I was doing everything I could possibly think of: exercise, deep massage, chiropractic, PRP injections. I don't know if you know what those are, but naturopathic doctors do them.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing was helping, nothing. And finally, the prescription was, Becca, I think you really need to take a little time off. My husband had been in a dirt bike accident. I was seeing all of his patients too. And I thought for sure that would fix it because I didn't know how to take time off. I thought if this wild thing of 2 weeks off could be it, then surely that'll fix it. But that was when my legs started going down.
Oh my goodness.
I got an MRI to see if I had MS. That was what we thought it likely was. Mm-hmm. But they use a contrast agent when they're viewing your brain that has heavy metal in it so that the magnet can see it. Mm-hmm. And I did not clear that heavy metal from my brain. So that's what made it so I couldn't read, write, play music, anything. And then it lit an autoimmune fire in me. It turns out I had Lyme disease. That was the problem with my arms and legs. It was the type that is attracted to your spine and to your spinal cord and your brain. Uh-huh. But then everything went haywire. I had breast implants. They started to collect what's called a biofilm and make me incredibly sick with breast implant illness. I had spots under my wisdom teeth where they had been removed that turned septic and the bacteria had eaten down to the nerve in my bone. I
Oh
had
my
internal
goodness.
bleeding. It was just like punch after punch. What I learned through it, however, is right in line with your podcast is I think I was just stubborn enough that it took that much to put me down and to get me to notice what was really going on in my internal world. I had enough
Mm-hmm.
other things propping me up that I could call successful, that
Mm-hmm.
I just counted on those to create my identity. And when
Right.
I was no longer, those versions of successful, I had to look at who I really was inside. And I realized, despite a life of really thinking I knew, I had some serious work to do. I didn't know
Yeah.
how to handle my anger or my grief or my trauma. I only kind of knew how to make things look perfect on the outside. That
Yeah.
included my body shape, that
Yeah.
included everything. And I had a lot to learn. So I
Sure.
now I now teach, I suppose, in a different way what wellness is, as in it's actually caring about yourself and caring for yourself
Yeah.
rather than all the other things we can point to that say we're successful. So
Right. Right.
that's it
And
in a
there's no cookie.
nutshell.
Yeah. And there's no cookie cutter way to, say, oh, you need to do this, this, and this. Everyone's different. What their wellness journey and, their health, everyone's just a little bit different. I am very curious, though, when you were going through all of this, first of all, how old were you and how old were your children? Because if your husband was in an accident and you had your children to care for, who was helping you and, what was going on? That had to have been crazy.
It was crazy. That was intense. First of all, it was 2020 when it happened.
Mm.
So the pandemic slowing everyone else down was actually felt like a blessing to me because I was slowed down anyway. And I didn't mind if the pace of the world
Yes.
really, really got quieter. So that was just 2020, which means I would have been 41. My children now are ages 10 to 18. So they were about ages 7 to 15.
Hmm.
And truthfully, that was part of the hardest part for me. I was angry. I was really angry that I couldn't take care of them. It still makes me
Hmm.
cry a little bit. Sorry, you asked the correct
Oh, no, you're
question.
good. You're good.
My two littles, actually, that my older kids were supportive and wonderful, but my two littles are the ones in the home that can kind of feel when something is wrong in another room. And
Hmm.
they would often just come in when I needed help mentally or physically. They helped me bathe. They helped me get to the bathroom. They also learned the signs for when I started to be able to get up and walking still for the last 3 years. And sometimes today, if my nervous system gets overwhelmed, it just shuts down. I can't move or talk. And they know the signs and learned really quickly how to help me regulate myself, like because I was used to trying to push all the time. So I would try to finish the meal or finish the grocery store trip, um, or finish the carpool or whatever. And
Hmm.
they would say, Mom, it's time. Like it's time to sit down. What happens if you just take care of yourself? They really were my coaches. My little girl, one time when I was making dinner, and I knew that a neurologic slide was happening. I could I could feel it, but also I wanted to get a nutritious meal out at least once a day now that I could
Yeah.
move. And I finally stopped and I just talked to my son and said, Hey, I can tell that I really need to sit down, but this isn't done yet. And I just verbalized out loud, I don't know what
Mhm.
to do. I don't know how to choose what I do right now. He
Yeah.
looked at me and said, Mom, there's no one in this house that wants a meal more than they want you to be taking care of yourself. And I said, All right, so I'm going to sit down now. He's like, Fine, we'll forage or someone will finish it. Sit down. And my daughter was on the stairs and heard that. And she came down and said, Mom, you are getting so much better at that. I'm going to give you a badge. And she literally, like with
Oh.
crayons, made a badge that said most improved at taking care of yourself. I clipped it on with a
Oh.
safety pin. And that was a way I realized, wow, I was mad because they were seeing a woman that to me looked weak, like couldn't move, couldn't even cook. I can't hold a thought clear in my mind. And I didn't want them to see me as weak. I didn't want them to see me give up or not be able. That was a big part of the push always, was what my children would see. But what they are seeing is a woman who's learning to put herself together and take care of herself. And when I really think about it, wow, I'm really grateful they get to see that, even though I'm not always graceful about it. Hallelujah that they get to see
Yes.
that.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I think we both need tissues now. What great kiddos. I mean, that's a testament to your parenting. So congratulations. That they just sound like wonderful children. Oh my gosh.
Maybe it's a testament, or maybe they're just, put here for that. Because I think
Either way.
if I take credit for those, I also have to take credit for when they're little selfish snooty pots. Which we all
it all
are.
comes. Again, there's the balance.
Yeah.
Oh, so okay, so you said Lyme's disease.
Yeah.
How long do you know when you were bit by the tick and
Yeah.
when?
Now looking back, I think, oh, that makes so much sense. So
Okay.
I did a lot of martial arts when I was in high school, and the style that I studied was called ninjutsu. We also did a whole lot of work outside with like camouflage and group movements. So I did a lot of campouts, and I had a tick bite me in the groin when I was 17. And I didn't know it was there. We were doing a ropes course, and I just knew my groin was bothering me, but I thought it was because I was doing a ropes course. So it was in me all day. And by the time I saw it at night, it was really inflamed. The reason I think it was that, is because mysteriously, about 6 to 9 months later, my arms started losing coordination. They started really hurting in my elbows and in my wrists. But I was a cellist. I had a music scholarship, and I was playing about 8 or 9 hours a day in my college orchestra. So I just thought I was overworking and overstressed and wrote it off to all of that. But they eventually did shut down. I wasn't able to move my arms, which no one could figure out. I lost my music scholarship. It was
Oh my
really
goodness.
hard for 2 years, like trying to figure out. We were going to physical therapists and surgeons, and they couldn't find anything that was wrong. So they just kept telling my father it was in my head and I must want attention. And I'm like,
Oh my
actually, I
gosh.
would rather have a life. This isn't
Yeah,
the
no
fun kind
kidding.
of attention. But it eventually started healing. That was actually how I found chiropractic. My arms were not working well. No one could help figure it out. And I was just moving on with life. And then a chiropractor, I went in for a neck injury, and he had heard what was happening with my hands. He adjusted my wrists, and I felt blood flow and nerve flow for the first time in 2 years. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I just looked at him and asked him what I needed to do to be a chiropractor, because I wanted to help people like that. And I
That's
did that.
cool.
So I just thought it was a repetitive strain injury.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, all through my early 20s. And then I would have flare ups in my arms, but I thought it was just the old injury or
Right.
things happening with my neck from, car accidents, martial arts, all of it. I started to get a lot of digestive problems, which was weird because I ate carefully and took care of myself. And we just could not figure out what was happening with the digestive stuff. I was seeing doctors for that. I was doing all of the gut protocols I knew. I just kept having these mysterious, weird things that like no one could figure out, and that caused a lot of pain and fatigue. Now I know Lyme disease does all of that. We couldn't figure out if it was Lyme disease because you cannot always tell. The tests that they do in medical literature, I mean in the medical system, are really inaccurate. And the ones that actually show you if you have the antibodies usually take cash and are quite expensive. But I went to a clinic in Mexico when I was in a wheelchair and struggling. We were just willing to go anywhere that could help. And we had heard this place went about things differently. And they actually drew my blood and looked at it under a microscope, and you could see they're called spirochetes. They're little parasites that live in the blood after a tick, or it can come from a cat scratch, or there's a bunch of different ways that it can, eating meat that has had ticks all over it. My husband is a really avid hunter, so who knows how many times I've been exposed to it. But you could see the little spirochete, little beasties in there. I could also see the heavy metals in the blood. Literally, they were little specks of blood, and the red blood cells around them would just look dead. They just got shriveled and couldn't move. It was wild to see my blood in real time.
Yeah.
And then that helped me know, okay, this is Lyme disease. But then I had to figure out what to do about that. I had lots of different providers that I was blessed to work with, but what I realized is lots of people go in to heal Lyme disease or other problems by doing a lot of things to kill the parasites or to kill the bugs. And it would always make it worse. I literally felt insane. I could feel things crawling in my brain. I would break out in massive hives and rashes all over my body. And I finally started working with someone who worked on opening my detoxification channels first, on making sure my gut was getting rid of toxins well, my lymphatic system was working well. And then we slowly went in to work on the parasites and the bugs. And it took a good year. And that got me functional, but I still didn't feel great. And then I started working with a mentor who really helped me take a look at my belief systems in life, at my way I was handling my emotions, at the way I was speaking to myself internally. And I would say at that point is when I really started getting a life back that I wanted to live, not that I was just enduring.
Wow. And from 17 to 41 to always have to deal with something, that's a long span.
It is. What I'm learning is there are so many people just like me. I mean, wow. When I first was sick, after I started to be able to tolerate looking at a screen and we started to understand what was happening, I would look at Lyme disease groups and I just couldn't stay in there very long. It's so hard and so sad. And most people have been misdiagnosed or wrongly diagnosed or told they have no hope. Same thing with, so I have something called myalgic encephalitis as a result, which means the encephalo is like your brain and spinal cord, and the myo part is the muscles around it. My muscles and my brain and spinal cord get really inflamed, and that's when I have those episodes. But wow, those groups, very little hope. Very, very little hope. Breast implant illness was
that would be very sad.
Yeah. Breast implant illness was the place where there was so many women coming together with so much hope and information and joy. I thought, wow, there are sick people all over the planet that feel lost, that don't know what to do, that maybe don't have the money to slide over to Mexico and try it. I got an inheritance right before I got sick, and I used all of the inheritance trying to figure out how to have a life again. But, there are people all over that are waiting for the information or for the help, or maybe going about things in all the reverse order like I did. And I think that's the point of the podcast that I started, is trying to help streamline some of that information that I gathered from all over, and network of people that can help bring in the stuff that really makes a difference. It is a lot. And there's a lot of people like me.
Oh my gosh. There's probably so many that just are totally clueless what's happening. When you went down to Mexico, if you don't mind me asking, like what alternative things did they do that they don't do here in the States? Because I know I've looked into for various cancer patients and clients, the Gerson therapy, and that's not allowed here in the States. And so I'm curious what they had you do.
Yeah. And I chose carefully. Really, how I chose the clinic to go to is, it might sound strange, but honestly, I know I'm getting an intuitive tap or something, like that source or the universe wants me to know when something starts coming to me in threes, right? And that's what happened in this Mexican clinic. Really, someone came to me and told me, like, I know this is weird, but there's this clinic in Mexico that I went to. One person went to for her son's type 1 diabetes. And what they did there helped the type 1, not the type 2 kind, but the kind you are born with that is incredibly dangerous. They went there and his type 1 diabetes got in a completely regulatory range without having to take insulin as long as he followed their protocols. I thought that is amazing. I don't know if I believe it.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
then another neighbor who I didn't talk to very often said, "Hey, I heard you're really sick. I heard no one can figure out what it is. There's this clinic in Mexico, helped my mom with her MS." And it was the same clinic. And then literally later at a different activity I was in the city, I'm in my wheelchair. I'm just happy to be outside of my house, really. Someone else came up to me and told me about Lyme disease, that their aunt had gone to this clinic in Mexico. It was all the same clinic. And I thought, fine, I will go. So it was in Tijuana, it's called Advanced Biomedical. And you have to pay cash to do it, but you cross the border and so you meet with a doctor. And first of all, the doctors listen. Many doctors in the United States do listen and many don't. So I would say if people are stuck with symptoms that don't make sense and they're just getting passed around to different doctors, if you aren't finding someone who's actually caring about the things you're saying, find another one. There are doctors that will listen. And I tune into that a lot. So they listened carefully and then they draw your blood to look at it under the microscope. It's called dark field microscopy. It is not, I don't know what the current legality is. When they did that, the current legality in the United States, when they did that, I just went straight afterward to the internet and thought, why has no one done this? This is obviously more accurate. It's real time. You don't have to do tests. The test for Lyme disease costed, I think, $1,600 and only told me I had been exposed to Lyme disease, not that I had it actively. So how do you know if you need to do the expensive treatments? But it said that it was not legal in the United States because people had been using it to diagnose people without really knowing very much about the disease they were diagnosing, or because they were using it to sell nutrition. Like in the blood, you can tell if you don't have enough fatty acids. You can tell if you are low on vitamin E or on lots of different vitamin Bs, because the blood cells look sick or not sick. You know, you can see what's happening. So people would draw the blood and tell them they needed to take their specific nutrition. So the FDA got in and put the kibosh on that. But I also have heard of people in the United States that are doing it, and they're not really rogue people. So I don't know if it has changed. If you know someone that's doing dark field microscopy that's reputable, they will be showing you what's in the blood, not just pushing the supplements to fix it. So they took that, they saw the heavy metals, they saw the spirochetes from the Lyme, they saw I had some nutritional deficiencies. And they also did stem cell therapy there. So here it is thousands per injection. There it was, I think, $100 per injection.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So I got injections in my spine and my wrists and my everywhere that was hurting. The Lyme disease had eaten away at the discs in my neck and my low back. So anywhere I was hurting, they just put stem cells basically. And then they did chelation therapy, which comes through an IV to help pull the heavy metals out of your bloodstream. They also did colonics before then to kind of open up the digestive system, because your liver pours the toxins. When you cleanse your liver, pours it into your gut. So if your gut isn't moving very well, you feel worse. Your lymphatic system needs to be clear before you're pulling heavy metal crap out, or it's going to be worse. And if your guts aren't working and you fill it with heavy metals, you're going to feel worse. So, so I was grateful they knew all of that. And they also did ozone treatments. Ozone is another thing you can put in your blood through an IV. They pull your blood, they mix it with ozone, and they pump it back in. And ozone is really antiviral, really antimicrobial. So they did things that help your body support itself, things that help the metals come out, things that are using your own blood supply but putting antiviral things in it instead of where we in Western and American medicine, well, Western medicine, American culture, we put antibiotics in, which destroys everything in the gut. And then we don't have the healthy bacteria to help us, get our health back. It controls so many systems in our body. So they did that. We came back and realized I know people that do all of those things. In fact, in many cities, there are people like naturopathic physicians or functional medicine physicians often have ozone treatments that they will do. Many of those same people do chelation therapies. There are people that do colonics. I'm not a fan of the method of doing like the blast through force of water makes it out. But there are gravity assisted colonics and people that can also pump antiparasitics in there. There's lots of really neat things in the United States. It's just, you have to look for them. So I would say if people are feeling sick and not getting answers and getting tossed around, I would really look for a very skilled naturopathic doctor or functional medicine doctor that does the things that help support your body's natural way of getting rid of these things and can help you figure out if you detox first, if you kill the bugs first, how your lymphatic system is doing, that works as the body as a whole. And I would say that saved a lot of time.
Wow. And I'm curious then how this changed your personal life and how it changed your practice, because it had to drastically change both.
Yeah. So, wow, we are right now feeling the effects of a lot of that. So that's interesting. Yeah. Personal life, it really helped some things live and it really helped some things die. I really was shocked. This sounds so egotistical and wild, but I really was shocked that the circus continued on without me. Like I had put myself in the middle of everything, the management of the clinic, the captain of the house, and I was happy, but also surprised that, carpool went on and life went on. And naturally being super sick for 3 years filters some people out, some people in. I kind of realized what I valued in personal relationships. There were amazing friends who were sort of good friends, like I liked them. They were acquaintance and friendly friends before then, but they came forward in a way that was so real. Not afraid to come in my room and hold my hand and cry with me. And that's, tender. That's real. That isn't a fake thing. And I think we get used to fake connection and call it connection. And that's different than a handhold. Really different.
True. It's very true.
Yeah. I learned it also doesn't take a ton of time. So I have been on the reverse where people were sick or injured or grieving and I didn't know what to do and I didn't want to impose. And I, if they're sick, they might not want to see anybody. So I have this sort of conversation with myself and just decide to send them love because I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
What I learned though, was there are people that do know what to do. There's an older lady that I live on a cul-de-sac and she lives on the end of the cul-de-sac. She and her husband were in their late 70s, early 80s. And she would just call me at the grocery store and say, I am at the grocery store. I am going to buy you something. I know you have to need groceries. You have 4 little kids. What do you want? Avocados are on sale. And I would be like, I would love an avocado. I was never going to text her. She's 80 years old. I was never going to text her to ask her if she could buy me bread and avocados. But if I said yes to avocados, she would ask if I had what we needed for sandwiches. She would ask if I had enough granola bars. She would be specific and ask what I needed in a way that she's like, I am here already, honey. You are not making anybody go out of their way.
Yeah.
I thought that was so beautiful. Or people would call and just ask if they could come and chat. And I could say yes or no. So I learned a lot in my relationships that way. I have much less interest in superfluous crap. I am very wary of people who are just promoting perfection and drive and, what I look at now as like the way that we trick ourselves into thinking we've got it covered with our ego, like
Yes.
I'm wary of that. I'm so now interested in real people. When I say, how are you doing? And they ask back, if it's someone that the real answers are met with laughter or understanding or collaboration, I guess it changed what I'm looking for. It changed what I want to come forward as. In my work life, we're dealing with that right now. So I'll just be raw and honest. There is that's been hard. Just yesterday, so the clinic has been staying afloat, and it still is staying afloat, but it went from being a very thriving practice. We had just hired other doctors to help with our overflow because we were booked out so far. And those doctors ended up covering me instead when I went out. But then because they were not me, even though they were amazing, they had, a different client base liked them or not.
Sure.
And so a lot of the patients went to other chiropractors, which is great. I want them to be able to see other people. So I was just happy people were still getting taken care of. But as I'm in my clinic now, I guess what is showing up for me is, I still can't work all that much. I work 2 half days a week. But I think what I'm realizing is everyone has a different energy they bring to a place. And I really was the driver of the heart of the place. And where before I was surprised the circus kept going and it kind of hurt my feelings a little because I was stuck in ego. Now I'm realizing everyone has a different vibration they carry, and it's helping me notice I actually do make a difference in a place when my heart is in it. We would start the day with patients. My team and I would hold hands, take deep breaths together, like get ready and grounded for the day, have a shot of emergency, and off we went, like to help all the babies and help all the everything. It was like heart and force. And I don't feel called to be at the clinic like that anymore. I can feel my direction has shifted. The podcast is the place I know I am intended to start. And then from there, I can feel this pull to be able to reach more people than I can, one person at a time in the adjusting room, and to support my body a little better. It still doesn't like to be really active, pushing and pulling. So I can feel my gratitude at being there, my happiness and kindness, and I love to like flex the need for skill a little bit. So my brain is engaged and I feel like I'm doing good for the world, but I'm not a driving force there, and it's different. So it moved from a very busy clinic to kind of a part-time clinic. But, and honestly, I'm super grateful for that. I'm grateful my husband was able to step up. I'm grateful that other doctors stepped up, but it is shifting. The other doctors have moved on, and my husband's kind of trying to figure out how to manage it. So we're right now trying to figure out what we do.
Right.
If it's a ship we rebuild, if it's a ship we morph or change, it's just a part of everything that I guess some parts lived and some parts don't. So the clinic is still going, but it's different.
Yes. Well, and probably different for a wonderful way for those individuals coming to get treatment. I know that we have switched from a more of a traditional chiropractor to someone that does functional medicine. And how I describe him is chiropractic, functional medicine, and a little bit of voodoo mixed in.
Oh, they're my favorite
he's such
people.
a cool individual. And some physical therapy. He's so cool. But it's just amazing. I think the chiropractic care is fascinating to me. So I can see why you were drawn to it.
Yeah. I think any system that really supports the body doing what it's meant to do is fascinating to me. Even like I have become really into regenerative gardening. And that to me is kind of along the same things, for supporting what the earth naturally does, but we can help it do it faster or repair faster. I love that. For chiropractic, it's your body can naturally heal itself. It's doing it all day long. All day long, you're killing cancer. All day long, you're healing cuts. All day long, you're detoxing. You're doing it all day long. But there can be some things that prevent your body from doing it very well. It can be, chiropractic specifically works with the nervous system, and it makes a big deal. It also works with the myofascial system, which affects so much in your body. So yeah, I love it. And I don't mean to say like my clinic is like dead. I was just there yesterday.
No.
Breathing in this space and realizing it's different. Like it isn't,
It's different.
It isn't mine.
Yeah.
It's different. Yep.
It's shifted a little bit. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about your podcast. So I know I'm a new podcaster. I've learned so much. Weird technical things, but then also so much about myself too. Oh, yeah. Let's not get into all of that. But like, tell me what's the name of your podcast so the listeners can go find it. We'll also put it in the show notes. And then, your message, you've already shared a little bit about that, but what you've learned about yourself along the way too in doing this.
Oh, you ask wonderful questions. So my podcast is called What Really Makes a Difference. And the tagline is Empowering Health and Vitality. So nice. That's how you would find it. It's on all the platforms. What I have learned about myself. So first of all, I've learned I am better at interviewing and having conversations with other people than I am at summarizing my own story all by myself in my closet, because that just makes me depressed. But talking with you is wonderful. So I think maybe I'll have to get a friend to ask me questions to actually share more of my story on the podcast. I was very intimidated starting the podcast because I still have, my brain doesn't work the same.
Right.
Tech is really hard for just because of the stimulation that comes in. My brain can get overwhelmed far more easily than it did before.
Sure.
And I've not ever been very technically well-versed. I like hands-on communication in style speaking.
Yeah.
So that was like the mountain I had to climb in order to be able to do the thing I knew I needed to do. So it's been interesting. I have to write notes for myself and go back to it. It takes me like 5 times longer than it would take anyone I know that's 20 years old. But I'm also proving to myself that I can do these things. It was the wildest moment a month ago. My husband is very well versed in tech, and I was frustrated with something, and he came over to try to help me. And I was almost annoyed that he was in the way, because I knew where to click and what to do. And I've never had that experience before. I really did have to send him away and figure it out my own, because it would be harder to explain to him what I needed than for me just to figure it out, which was such a really funny switch of roles. But I would also say I have learned, oh, sorry, that's my alarm. I would also say that I have learned when people ask me questions, I hear different answers coming out of my own mouth. And I think that's a huge blessing. I knew this whole illness was for me, it didn't happen to me, happened for me. But when I hear sometimes in conversation bits of wisdom or bits of truth come out of my own mouth that I can feel the resonance of, and I can tell it's true, and I know I wouldn't have gotten to it without these experiences over the last 3 years. The sense of gratitude has really helped enrich my life. I also find it so wonderful to have an excuse to reach out, to have conversations with all these amazing people. I have started asking people that I don't know. I mean, at first it was people that I did know that said yes as a favor, but people that I don't know are now saying yes, and they're amazing people. And after every conversation exchange, I just feel so grateful that I have a way to even invite these conversations into my life, and B, a way that I can share these conversations, because I have a person in mind that I always wish could hear one conversation or the other. And now they can, which just makes me giggle inside.
Oh gosh, I 100% agree. And for me too, like I've always been the person, it sounds like you were too, like so busy and here and there and doing this and that. It has allowed me to slow down and to learn to really listen, hear what people are saying, and be present with it. And what a great gift that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you, I have met the most amazing people.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking it would be a gift for the listeners. And like all things that are in flow, it ends up being a gift for the person you're giving it to, and then such a gift for yourself in return.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
Well, you're
Oh,
good
goodness.
at doing this. So I'm glad you are doing this, Robin.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy that you're sharing your story with everyone. And if you wouldn't mind just telling the listeners again how they can find you.
Yeah, I am on socials, like on Instagram, it's Dr. Becca Whittaker. That's Beccawhittaker. I'm wondering now if that was maybe a difficult handle to have because it's easy to misspell. But I'm just there with my name, Dr. Becca Whittaker, and my podcast, What Really Makes a Difference. Those are probably the best ways to hear more.
Wonderful. Yes. And I will make sure I put that in the show notes. And thank you again for taking the time, sharing your story, your energy. I just love you. I just love you. I could spend a couple more hours with you.
Exactly. Thank you. And
Yeah.
looking at this setup behind you makes me want to exercise. I am more gentle and slow and I can't do as much, but it would be fun to be
Nope.
around you.
Yes. No, I would love that. Anytime you're in the Kansas City area, you look me up.
Wonderful.
All
Thank
right. You
you.
take care. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
A big thank you to Dr. Becca. That was wonderful. And how amazing are her kiddos? Oh my gosh. And again, I found this to be such a powerful conversation. And one of the things that I realized, and I didn't share in the show, and I didn't talk to her about that because I wasn't sure how Dave would feel, my husband. But we have had kind of a scare too. And I think things are surfacing now in his body due to an issue from a tick bite that he had in 2019. It ended up having Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So we'll definitely be checking all of that out. But here are the takeaways. Sometimes the answer is rest, but keep seeking if that doesn't sit well with you. Only you truly know your body. 2, be aware what is going on in your internal world and be careful with attaching your identity to something external. We're all human, leaving us vulnerable to any and all issues and diseases in life. Treat it with respect and listen to your body. 3, anger, grief, and trauma can only be trapped for so long. Find mechanisms and practices to help you deal with those emotions before they show up physically in your body. 4, kids are amazing and God's gift to us in more ways than we'll ever know. Maybe go hug your kiddo or send that I love you text right now. 5, chiropractic care and functional medicine are both so amazing and fascinating to get to the root cause of issues instead of a Band-Aid approach that often happens with traditional medicine. Don't get me wrong, traditional medicine does have its place. 6, there are answers out there for everyone and every issue. Research to find the right doctor or alternative medicine and keep searching until you get the right help. There are doctors that will listen. 7, despite what you might think, life will go on and tasks will get done without you if you need a break. Pour your energy into relationships first. It is your connections and relationships that will help you through hard times. Eliminate fake connections in your life and focus on the genuine ones. Also, be that genuine friend to someone else. So again, this conversation was, it made me think about so many wonderful people that Dave and I and our kids are surrounded by. I don't know if I can finish this without crying, so hang in there with me. So I know that there were secret helpers. Sorry. And some not secret. As the boys were growing up and we were strapped for cash. Thank you. Sorry. To our friends that brought meals when I had my hysterectomy, and those that brought meals when we were moving, and it was just Dave and I doing all the work because the boys couldn't be there on loading day due to work schedules and COVID exposures. And that's when Dave started calling me beef, which is a story for another time, but thank you. To my clients and friends that have stuck by me. Gosh, you guys, I'm sorry. To my clients and friends that have stuck by me for 21 years. Okay, I really want to hit the stop button and delete this and start over, but I'm not going to do it. I can't even begin to thank you. I know you've wavered at times. I know you've gone to battle for me. And I know that you've been crazy loyal. Thank you. And to all my listeners, so many wonderful things are headed this way, and I can't do any of this without you. So thank you to you as well. Go have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, be sure to follow Spandex and Wine so you don't miss an episode. To do this, just go to the podcast and click subscribe or follow wherever you are listening. Look for the plus sign or follow button. This is one of the best things that you can do for the podcast. If you'd also be willing to give a 5-star review, that would be amazing and much appreciated. Lastly, please share an episode with a friend or 5 to keep the love going, and join the Spandex and Wine community in our private Facebook group by searching Spandex and Wine. Feel free to reach out to me at any time by emailing info@spandexandwine.com or text me at 913-392-2877. I appreciate you. Thank you.